Hello, and welcome to Vision Denial and World Watch 2022. My name is Sam, and if those of you who are new here, I have watched every single playoff of 2022. Yes, every single one of them, even that one. Notably, this particular series, we were covering the summer of 2022 on our anticipation and preparation for Worlds. And this, you have stumbled upon, or you are a regular subscriber and watcher, to the Meet the Teams portion, where I will take a look at every 24 team, their strengths, weaknesses, play styles, notable quirks, interesting things to look ahead, all in the attempts to at least teach some people who don't watch certain regions what to expect from their teams, or from the teams that are going. That said, there are two caveats to really put forward. First caveat: a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about are data-driven. I will put a link down below to the Google Docs of all of the data I have aggregated all in one nice spot. All of the data comes from the LoL fandom, Wikipedia, and from the goal.gg website, both of which have very different focuses to their data points, and both are necessary for these kinds of videos to work. That said, there's a limitation to some of this data because the LPL doesn't send the data as consistently as the other regions, and this is something you'll find with any particular data point for LoL esports globally. The LPL will still be missing some things regarding plates, drakes at 15 minutes, and heralds. A lot of the early game is not there. That and everything relating to vision. Second thing that I have to point out, a lot of the emerging regions, specifically Oceania, Turkey, Brazil, Latin America, and Japan, their teams will have some inflated stats in their favor. That being in mind, when we're looking at their stats, a lot of them will look good, notably the Chiefs and Detonation Focus Me. So some of the stats for every team has to be taken with a grain of salt of either being maybe stronger than expected or weaker than expected by quite a bit, notably because of this kind of inflation of statistics. When you're studying data, this is the kind of adjustments you need to do. That said, team-based data will look skewed. Individual data for each player's less so, because of the kinds of data points that they keep track of. All of that to say is that a lot of the notes that I've taken are using data points that have been collected that you can all enjoy for free down below, or in the various websites that I mentioned, but taking into account a lot of the personal notes that I use in conjunction with this data to show you what to expect with these teams. Without further ado, let's take a look at this video's team. I don't know. This is a pre-recorded message. Let's take a look. Let's meet GAM Esports. GAM Esports is the 15th team to qualify for Worlds after defeating Team Sacred in the semi-finals of the Vietnamese VCS Championships 3-0 and claimed the first seed after beating Saigon Buffaloes in the rematch in the Grand Finals 3-0 as well. Let's meet their coaches here real quick. We have Jackie Wynn, who has been a longtime coach across the VCS for multitude of teams since 2018, as well as currently being part of the advisory board for Fredit Brion and LCK. And Kai, however, on his point, has also been a coach or in the coaching scene since the 2019, but also previously a support player for Cherry Esports within Vietnam before joining GAM Esports in the summer of 2021 season, and has been an analyst and assistant coach since. Both of them have allowed GAM a really good sense of cohesion for the most part. This is the best team, or one of the best teams are regarding Drakes and neutral objectives around the bot side of the map. Incredibly solid regarding vision, either scoring first, second, or within the top 5 in all accounts. And fastest team as well as most damage per minute or second to most damage per minute, adjusting for the emerging regions inflation, so to speak. This is not necessarily the same GAM of spring or pre-spring tournaments where they would just steamroll everybody, not losing a single game, except for Saigon Buffaloes, or except two Saigon Buffaloes. GAM Esports this time in the summer had a little bit of time to just really ramp things up before they came back to the same form. And so much of their stats are wildly impressive, things like giving up a lot of heralds and not necessarily prioritizing Nasher or Baron necessarily at a solidly high rate compared to all of the other teams competing in the group stages can be somewhat worrisome, but their aggressive nature to the early game and how fast and quickly and efficiently they close games out and how efficiently they also win games when ahead at 15 minutes is a good indicator that this is a solidly scary team. Let's meet GAM Esports top laner, Kiaya. Kiaya here is an incredibly solid split-pushing top laner. His solo lane prowess is really exemplified by the fact that he is a top 5, I believe. Hold on. His kill share actually ruffles around the top 10, despite his kill participation being one of the lowest. He is consistently fighting, getting gold per minute, CS per minute, and his KDA being fairly respectable in the top half means that he is consistent at absorbing pressure and causing chaos around the map. GAM is an incredibly Drake-centered team-fighting team, and the fact that they have such a strong application of side lanes and really pushing the wave manipulation, Kiaya really aids in that pursuit. Leaving him alone means your base is going to die, as the rest of GAM are going to out-team fight you if you're not paying attention 4v5. And even then, he'll still come back, because his kill participation still indicates that he participates regularly in moments of need around neutral objectives. Let's meet the jungler of GAM Esports, Levi. Some of you who are Chinese fans or North American fans may recognize him as being part of like 100 Thieves Academy for a brief while, or even JD Gaming for the spring of 2019, but returned back to his starting team of GAM Esports for the summer 2019 season and has stayed since. This player is damn impressive. Most of the junglers here have some stats in the top 10 or top 5, while others are kind of lagging behind in some way, shape, or form as they focus on either ganking or gold or invading their opponent. Levi is top 5 to top 10 across the board. Incredibly flexible. High gold share even for other junglers. Kill share and kill participation. Just consistently trying to find angles to get his team ahead, to get team fights rolling, and to upkeep his gold so that his opponent cannot even contest in some way, shape, or form. You think that him ganking so frequently means that you could invade him and steal his camps? Levi says no. Not only will he contest you, he will then steal your camps after you fought him. Watch out, world. Levi is a monster. Let's meet the mid laner of GAM Esports, Kati. Kati previously in the tail end of, or the beginning of the 2020 season, joined Team Flash and had been part of the Vietnamese scene for at least since 2018, finally joining in the 2021 season with GAM Esports. He's a rather interesting player and test case here, having the most champions played under his belt, most of them just once, however. He still shows the most amount of flexibility amongst his contemporaries, who are a rather stacked bunch. Mid lane is incredibly talented this year. You can notice that his gold per minute and his CS per minute figure within the top 5, and so he's very efficient, and even while his team doesn't have the most gold allocated to him specifically, he does make the most of it as much as possible. You then look at his KDA and his kill participation, and you would think something seems off, and that'd be correct. He tends to put himself in very aggressive positions, especially for playing champions that would not be necessarily suited for that. He likes to play zone-controlled mages or poke champions, and would try to find angles to create an engage that, honestly, could cost his team quite a bit. The rest of his team do pick up the slack, and the amount of space that he does create is rather beneficial, but it tends to come at the cost of pacing it sometimes, and to his own growth. He would have a much higher gold per minute or CS per minute if he was not so reckless. Let's meet the bot laner of GAM Esports. Having made part of his debut with Saigon Buffaloes during the summer of 2020 season, he has joined GAM Esports for the 2021 season and has done pretty solidly well for himself. A very lane-oriented first player, him and Levi, as well as his bot laner, B, have made quite a trio for themselves, properly skirmishing and really taking advantage of how much gold they can accumulate as a trio. This said, his KDA and the number of champions he plays figures as some of the lowest amongst his peers in this role. High CS per minute, gold per minute, and kill participation, all well and fine, but if you're frequently dying because of over-aggression, doesn't figure as nicely. That said, part of that also has to do with the nature of how the team plays. The very limited approach to Styles gameplay could lead to some situations where it's fairly easy to target him, having only 7 champions, and a lot of them being on your screen right now means that targeted bans are likely to come his way. But his efficient use of laning phase, as well as his fairly consistent approach to team fighting, at least in terms of the GAM style, means that he can really make the most out of any given situation. It'll be really interesting to see how his lack of flexibility and very narrow approach to the game will figure against many of the other contemporaries in his role who are rather stacked. Let's meet the support players of GAM Esports. The stats you'll see on the screen right now are for Bie, as he's the main participant, having joined GAM Esports in the 2021 season after leaving EVOS Esports. He's done fairly well with himself, while as Elio, having joined only for the summer of the 2022 season as a substitute. Both of them on a surface level and a surface read are fairly similar in terms of approach, with kill share, kill participation, even the champion rosters that they hold, while Bia has a little bit more to offer in terms of number of champions and a much stronger KDA, boasting even at the top of the charts for all of his contemporaries, only being right under Targamas, Eldoric, and Harp. He frequently is the stronger team fighter of the two. Elio strikes as the top of the gold chart for support players, and as impressive as that might be, it shows a fundamental narrow focus around laning phase first and foremost, whilst BA having the higher KDA, the higher kill participation, and kill share shows a lot more of a focus towards actual team fighting, roaming, and applying the vision necessary. So it really will depend on what kind of style GAM believes is necessary to play against their opponents, but more likely than not, BA will be on stage playing out an incredible set of team fights that will keep his team alive and his opponents zoned and confused on what to do. GAM Esports, also formerly known as the Gigabyte Marines, are usually a fan favorite, and for good reasons. They made a huge splash in the international scene, and since then have been fairly regularly competitive in their own region. And especially within the last 2 years, they have been incredibly dominant. It is no surprise to me that they took this slot as they had given up their ability, or not given up, but they have opted to not play in MSI. So a lot of people have missed what kind of a team or what kind of a juggernaut this squad is. They are immensely terrifying. Now, granted, their summer performance left a little bit to desire, especially at the start, and as they ramped up over time during the playoffs, we started to recognize a little bit more of the expected spring and 2021 GAM Esports. This team is super efficient at accumulating gold, at playing around Drakes, and while they give up Heralds a little bit more than I care for, I can see an avenue in which they do make it out of groups. Can. Looking at who they have to face is a different story. Rogue and Top Esports are rather fierce competitors, and Top Esports I feel less likely that GAM will be consistent at beating, and Rogue is mostly a guessing game to see whether or not the latter part of the playoff version of them is what we get to see. If we get to see regular Rogue, then I think it'd be no surprise if GAM makes it through. But then we have to contend with the likelihood that Royal Never Give Up are likely to come through, or not Royal Never Give Up, that DRX are likely to come through and join the roster. And even then, I do think that GAM have a very strong option here, or that they have a strong chance. It would not surprise me in a world that either they convincingly make it out or they tie and break a tiebreaker. This is a year in which GAM Esports have a solid shot. But those are my thoughts based off of expectations, stat reads from what I've watched over the playoffs. I want to hear what you have to think in the comments down below. And if you want to see how they made it to the Worlds, playoff things are somewhere here. All over the place are different playlists for the different playoffs, supercuts, my thoughts around the last couple of weeks, and the other teams that are qualified. Anything and everything are there, all on the side. Also, if you like this kind of content, leave a like and subscribe. I really appreciate all those who watch. And with that, I will see you all next time.